Sorry I'm late. Hit a little traffic. Optimus.
Decepticons, attack!
The Transformers feature film franchise has been around longer than anyone wants to admit. But for the majority of its lifespan, it seemed like every film was worse than the last. Until this movie came out.
Where's B-127?
Bumblebee is a pitch-perfect Transformers story that has heart, emotion, and most importantly, crystal clear storytelling. It shows what makes the Transformers as a franchise great, and how the original Michael Bay films, almost without fail, misunderstood what made the robots in disguise popular from the beginning. Before we dive in, we wanted to call out that this video topic was suggested by one of our subscribers, Blythe Penny Bicycle 21, who requested it on our last community post celebrating our 1 million subscribers. So thanks to them, and thanks again to all of you for being part of the Nerdstalgic community. Transformers is one of the most popular and successful toy lines in the history of the world. However, its origins are as convoluted as they are humble. Created by Takashi Matsuda and an army of other toy designers and inventors, the original line was produced by Takata Co. Limited. Through a bizarre series of events, Hasbro licensed the designs from Diaclone and Microchange toy lines in the 1980s and imported them to American audiences with a new story, background, and paint skins to make them more appealing to Western audiences. Thus, they were renamed Transformers, and consumer products were never the same. After multiple wildly successful animated TV shows and toy lines, Paramount Pictures and executive producer Steven Spielberg teamed up to make a run at adapting the beloved property into a big-budget live-action feature film. They hired Roberto Orci and Alex Kurtzman to pen the script, and resident Let's Make Stuff Blow Up director Michael Bay was brought in to bring the beloved Autobots and despised Decepticons to life on the big screen. And that's where they went wrong. Yes, the 5 Transformers films produced under Michael Bay and Company have been wildly financially successful, keeping Paramount in the black for close to 2 decades, but the films are riddled with issues, poor decisions, and just generally drove the Transformers brand into a ditch. So before we get into Bumblebee, let's look at what makes the other Transformers films just so bad. When development was initially beginning on Transformers as a live-action property, Spielberg suggested the guiding theme of A Boy and His Car, which propelled Orci and Kurtzman into exploring themes of coming of age, maturity, and the cresting horizon of adulthood. It lended a deeper emotional complexity to the story and provided a firm girding from which to build a story on top of. In the first film, Sam Witwicky's emotional development and impending responsibilities are symbolized by the Transformers. Humanity is centered in the story, but the Transformers are used as the emotional backbone of the story. Bumblebee is basically just a human baby that Sam has to take care of, ride, be responsible for, and then fight bad guys with. It's all the joy of discovery and bonding that E.T. offered, but with more explosions and slow-mo Megan Fox fetishization. However, after the financial success of the first installment is when Bay's true megalomania and complete lack of anything interesting to say on a story level reared its ugly head. Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, which was rushed into production after the release of the first film, was thrown for a loop due to the 2007-2008 Writers Guild of America strike. Bay would wrest creative control away from everyone else involved in the project and never really relinquish it going forward. So what is Revenge of the Fallen about? There's a MacGuffin, and the Autobots, Sam, and the Decepticons have to run all over the world trying to get it. The fact that the film even has that loose of a structure is a miracle because it was almost literally filmed without a script, which led directly to Bay's fingerprints over every aspect of the production. This is a key issue with the resulting Transformers films, Dark of the Moon, Age of Extinction, and The Last Knight. They are all impossible to see what's happening when the Transformers are fighting one another. It's just masses of gray blobs pounding other gray blobs. Which is to say nothing to the fact that despite the film series being literally named the Transformers, none of the Autobots or Decepticons have any legitimately discernible character personalities. Sure, Optimus is strong and heroic and Bumblebee can't talk, but other than that, what's a character trait for Jazz, or Ironhide, or literally any of the Decepticons that's not Gennaro evil? The summer of 2015 marked a potential turning point in the future prospects of the Transformers on the big screen. Paramount announced it was putting together a team of filmmakers to create a writer's room. This brain trust would be responsible for charting both the short and long-term future of everyone's favorite robots in disguise. Featuring the talents of Akiva Goldsman, Robert Kirkman, and Ken Nolan, who would eventually go on to write The Last Knight, and Christina Hodson, among many other writers. This brain trust would be constructed with the goal of operating as a hybrid between Marvel's creative council and a traditional TV show writer's room. They would map out the stories, build a cohesive universe, and make sure that all the Transformers films going forward would fit into a cohesive vision moving forward. The public perception of the franchise at this point was that the movies were loud, long, and emotionally taxing in their stupidity. Bay had burned through all the goodwill of the initial film. The Transformers were borderline the laughingstock of the Cineplex, and Paramount knew it. That's why they were attempting to course correct. Hodson and the writers' room solidified a new approach to the franchise that would be risky, but if it paid off, could lead to decades of new stories. They would tell a lightly in-continuity prequel story that would allow them to go back to basics and fix some of the elements that fans had been complaining about since the beginning. They were taking the franchise back to the 1980s. And thus, they decided to finally adapt the G1 designs. That's right. The new project would feature designs influenced by the Generation 1 of the Transformers that fans had been calling for as long as the Transformers had been on the big screen. Christina Hodson pitched a rough take to Paramount that was ostensibly E.T. with Bumblebee. Simple, straightforward, and back to the theme of growing older and embracing responsibility. The brass loved this new approach, and Hodson would become the first writer to receive a solo writing and story by credit. Released on December of 2018, Bumblebee starred Haley Steinfeld as Charlie and John Cena as Jack Burns, a former U.S. Army colonel and current Sector 7 agent. The film takes place in 1987 and follows Charlie, much like her real-world predecessor Shia LaBeouf, as she finds Bumblebee attempting to protect him from evil forces, both human and Decepticon alike. The first element of Bumblebee that sets it apart from the rest of the Transformers canon is that it has an emotional hook. It has an easy-to-grasp concept. Yes, it's reminiscent of the original film, but it's dialed in, works better, has more clearly defined characters, and a visual style and setting that actually plays into the subject matter. Bumblebee is what Transformers 1 wanted to be. It's basically the same logline, a girl and her car. But this time, it doesn't have any of the baggage or stylistic overcomplications of Bay. It's the evolved version of the original mission statement. Even just visually, the movie feels more like what Transformers should feel like. The Gen 1 designs of the robots are just so much more clearer, easier to understand, and visually impressive. The film balances humor and action well, and does a great job of tethering Bumblebee's story with Charlie's and giving them a common goal.
You want to see if I can fix it? I'll be gentle, I promise.
However, despite having a great emotional core, the real reason everyone comes to a Transformers movie is to see the fights. And Travis Knight's direction is stylized, clear, and engaging. Even just the opening sequence of Bumblebee alone is heads and shoulders above the previous entries into the franchise. We see the Autobots on Cybertron being led by Optimus, engaging in a last-stand battle against the Decepticons. The action is impactful, clear, simple, and direct. The direction is stylish, but not overly complicated, and that's ostensibly the entire film's modus operandi. It's to re-establish what the Transformers could do. Proving that it could be an actual movie franchise again, as opposed to gray, indecipherable kitchen appliances barking orders at one another. I know I brought it up already, but truly, the inclusion of the Gen 1 designs really levels up the viewing experience of this film by a full 20%. Even if you're not a hardcore Transformers fan, the simple fact that all the characters have large color areas on their bodies makes them easier to track. And the fact that they all have defined silhouettes and head shapes really helps to make them identifiable, especially in an opening sequence like this where there are multiple robots running around shooting at each other. Despite everything Bumblebee had going for it, Paramount was so unsure about the direction of the franchise that they initially didn't confirm or deny that this film would be a full-on reboot or just a soft prequel. Well, after the box office haul of $468 million, they've officially committed to this approach as a reboot, throwing out the Bay-led continuity and using this as the new marching orders for the franchise. Without Hodson and Knight's emotionally honest and straightforward approach to building a new Transformers story, this franchise could easily have gone the way of the theatrical X-Men or Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. However, if things play out the way that they look like they're going to, we're going to be treated to an extended run of new Transformers movies. Bumblebee provided a service that I didn't even know I wanted. It created a venue for the viewer to re-fall in love with the Transformers. It made a clean on-ramp to something that I had loved and then became jaded by. It washed away the grit and grime of Michael Bay's cynical lowest common denominator choices. Placing Bumblebee in 1987 seems like such a blatant play for nostalgia bait, but unlike so many other properties that feel like they have to be in the 80s, placing the Transformers there really elevates the material organically. And these choices are everywhere in Bumblebee, from costumes to character motivations to story structure to, as I've already said, the G1 Designs. It's a great example of not overcomplicating things and just telling a simple story with a clear and concise goal. 2023 will see Rise of the Beasts, building on the framework that Bumblebee established. We'll see if including the characters from Beast Wars and Beast Machines overcomplicates the streamlined approach that Bumblebee took. But if nothing else, it's very apparent that Bumblebee saved the Transformers. Well, that's it for this episode. Thanks again, Blythe Penny Bicycle 21, for the episode pitch, and thank you all for the 1,000,000 subs. Thanks for being here. And as always, please like and subscribe for more videos like this from Nerdstalgic.